Welcome to the third episode of the Pre-Health Purple Hawk podcast, brought to you by Pre-Health Advising at Hunter College. My name is Isaiah Keynes, and it is a pleasure to welcome a Hunter alum and fourth-year medical student, Nicholas Brutus, who recently matched at Yale University for his urologic surgery residency. It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast, Nicholas.
Isaiah Keynes, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So overall, how's everything?
I would say, coming up to this podcast, I was reflecting on my own journey. I remember sitting in your exact same seat thinking, what were the things I wanted to hear and would I even make it this far? So, I'm beyond blessed and beyond grateful to be in my current position. It's not just me, it's a community of people here at Albany Med, along with a lot of alum across the country had matched into their first choice residency. So, I'm just happy overall.
All right, that's great to hear. So I guess we can just get straight into it. So this is, I guess, like the universal med school application question, but what inspired you to pursue a career in medicine?
Oh, yes, the dreaded why medicine question. The one thing that Hunter does a great job at doing, and it's really due to its location, being on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, you have so much wealth of resources around you. Well Cornell is right around the corner. You have all the NYC HHC hospitals, the community public hospitals. So I did a lot of my shadowing at Harlem Hospital. I took the 6 train and I transferred to the 2 every morning to shadow on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And it was there that I really got to experience medicine. There's a lot of things you learn in the classroom, like, what the mitochondria is, the Krebs cycle, right? But actually learning how to apply what you see in textbooks from a, molecular structural basis into seeing it play out in patients was one of the biggest, I'd say, factors that could merely push me into medicine. Growing up, when I think about like high school and like elementary school, every once in a while I like play like, oh, Dr. Brutus sounds like an interesting career. But there's one patient in particular. Her name was Abel. She was like, I'd say a 6-year-old girl, and she was walking through the outpatient pediatric clinic of Harlem. And, she had seemed like a normal girl. After her leaving the room, like the physician had done a regular workup, spoke with the family. And for me, it seemed like this was a normal person. This just seems like a regular visit. At the end of the visit, the physician took me aside and showed me a brain CT scan. And you could see it was like I'd say a quarter-size hole running from the superior aspect of her forehead into the basilar brain of her brain. And I was very like dumbfounded that like this such a structural change was occurring in the 6-year-old girl. And the reason for this was really lack of access to clean water. She had a brain-eating amoeba, and she had actually flown from Africa to get care here in the States. And I just remember in that moment, there's so much more to learn about medicine than just like solving problems and, learning the organic chemistry mechanisms, and that your efforts can contribute into helping someone that's in front of you. And so from there on, I knew that medicine was my gig. And from there, I started volunteering as much as I could, being in the office as much as I could, seeing other opportunities within medicine that I could get involved in at Hunter. But, I thought it was the right decision. And I think, that was my why. And it's continued to drive me every day since even now.
Right, that's really empowering. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, I mean, I think we all have, some sort of reason of why we want to pursue a career in medicine. And even to be honest, as a pre-med student myself, I'm still trying to find that reason, that like, significant, like concrete reason of why I want to do medicine. But I mean, the story that you gave, really empowering, and I think will definitely like influence a lot of other students to think about how they can also contribute to the medical world. So thank you for that. And in order to really get into medicine, you have to get into medical school, right? So my question for you is, how was your journey applying to medical school? Do you have any tips for current pre-med students like myself on what we should do right now? Even for students who are taking a gap year, or just the application itself, like the essay, like, do you have any tips, and how did you create a successful med school application?
Sure. I just want to start out by saying I did terrible on my first MCAT.
Mhm.
I'm not afraid to share it. I got a 495 my first time I took it. And I took it because my friends were taking it. And I
Mhm.
think, going through Hunter, there was this like pressure, Like a lot of people that start first year medical school know like a big cohort of people that are going to become, I'm going to become a physician. I'm pre-med, right? Then second year comes along, then, some people are, oh, maybe I'll do something else. I'm going to reconsider my career. And by your third and fourth years of Hunter, your junior, senior years, you're kind of left with like a solid group of like maybe like 50 people taking the same classes together. And so for me, I was like, you know what? They're taking the MCAT. I should also take the MCAT, but I didn't know what it entailed, right? So one thing that is going to be the highlight or the theme of my storytelling to everyone here is that you have to operate at your own story, at your own pace, and know things that are supposed to work on your own timeline and don't compare yourself to other people. One thing I wanted to share before going into, my journey is like the biggest part of me and my identity and like the work I do in my health research disparities, as well as things I've published, as well as the book I've published, I'll mention later, is I saw a clear disparity in representation when it comes to looking at physicians. And, there is a current disparity in terms of Black men and Black women getting accepted and admitted to medical school, as well as maintaining their seat in medical school. And for me, that was something that, was always cognitively on the back of my mind. So after I did terribly my first MCAT, I had to meet with Camille, right? And learning how to ask for help is such a big part of the process. And she looked at me and said, Nicholas, like, why are you stressing out? Like, this happens to everyone. Failing is a part of the journey. And so, I was like, all right, well, my next step is, all right, I honestly don't know what to do. What should I do? She says, your options are research. You can obviously take another gap year to prepare your application a little better. You can pursue another graduate degree. But in my head, I need to make money. Sharing being personal, a lot of Hunter's debts I actually put on credit card because I didn't have, my parents' credit wasn't good enough to actually take out loans. So all my semesters I was putting on credit cards to kind of afford to be in Hunter. So I'm like, all right, well, I have to start making money now. So I end up applying for a medical diagnostic job, and kind of leads into like the next discussions, like my gap year. I ended up spending 2 gap years at Chem Biodiagnostics, which is a medical device company out in Long Island. There we make in vitro diagnostic test kits for infectious diseases, some of you which have heard like HIV, syphilis, Chagas, Zika. And our devices would be shipped to mostly third world or Latin American countries like Brazil. Haiti got some of our devices. But most importantly, I think the best part of working in this atmosphere is that we were able to develop one of the first successful COVID rapid antibody test kits, the ones that were sent out during COVID, like the ones that you swab your cheek, you put in the buffer and it ran. Yeah, our company was one of the first to get EUA approval for that. And I was on part of the quality investigation team, which confirmed the reproducibility and specificity of the devices. And so, going back to my journey applying to medical school, after I'd spent 2 years in my gap year, I had to hone in on, when was the best time for me to apply. As I look on my journey now, I don't think I was ready to apply the first time. And I'm happy I didn't apply because my options would have been extremely limited, right? The biggest part about medical school is really learning how to play the game, right? You always want to make sure that when you put in your first application, it's your best application. And so I could have applied with, okay, well, this is Nicholas Brutus. He's a scholar, all-American athlete. I wrestled throughout my time at Hunter. And I had some shadowing experience with little clinical time, but zero research, right? Instead, I took a year back and I said, you know what? I'm going to take the gap year. I'm going to reapply my MCAT, and I got like 13, 14 points higher on my second attempt. And I'm going to apply now. Now that I have a plethora of research, I have a publication from the job we're working at. I have thousands of hours of clinical experience in working in auditing and learning how to learning the inner workings of the health professions, as well as learning how to write and draft IRBs, and just really bringing tangible skills that would translate into medical school. So, just in summary, my biggest takeaways for anyone applying into the process now is knowing that when you apply, you need to put your best foot forward, and that includes whatever highest grade you think you can score on your MCAT, whatever opportunities that you think you didn't have in college. Don't be afraid to take a gap year. My classmates now that I think and the college recognizes as their strongest clinical skills are those that have other career experience, those that took 1 or 2 years to teach, those that took personal time off of school to really develop their own character and to identify their own self-character. So don't be afraid to take a gap year. And also, the last one, the last summary is, you're on your own pace and don't feel need to pressure yourself to compare yourself to your classmates.
Wow. All right, there we go. I mean, that's really inspirational, knowing that, MCAT doesn't make it all, right? It's not all about the MCAT, it's holistic, right? Um,
Exactly.
yeah, and it's good to know that you suggest a gap year, right? Don't be scared of a gap year. I know a lot of my friends are like, no, I'm not going to take a gap year. I want to go straight into it. And personally, for me, and I know a lot of pre-med students, we're still considering should we take a gap year or not. And through this, we can see that it's successful, right? So yeah, thank you so much for that. Um, and now, of course, all of this started from Hunter, right? So I wanted to ask, how was your time at Hunter? More specifically, how was your time as a pre-med student?
No, yeah, it was great. I mean, great is an interesting word to use. However, I was a student athlete, so one of my priorities was wrestling every day. My practice, I think we practiced double practices Monday, Wednesday, Friday for lifting, and then we had afternoon practice from like 3 to 5. And then between there, we'd squeezing classes. The best part of being an athlete, as long as like being Macaulay Honors or Yellow Scholars, that you got to choose your classes first. So, I recommend, those that, have the ability to play a sport and have the time management skills. If you're not a scholar and you're a high school sport athlete, consider playing a sport at Hunter. It's always not a bad option. And to this day, it still gets brought up in all my interviews. Like, oh, you're a wrestler. I mean, you would think that people, it wouldn't matter after a certain point, but it does. It builds such character. The first 2 years of Hunter, I actually drove in from Long Island, and I would park in Astoria and take the train in every single day, which is the most stressful thing I've ever done, and I do not recommend it. But that really made me focus on doing well in class. For me, there is no other option. If I failed, I had to pay for that class out of pocket again. That means another semester of me driving. It actually wasn't until my junior year of Hunter that I ended up dorming at the Brookdale campus, which is it was such a blessing to be there, and I highly recommend it. I'm not sure if it's still available, but it's such a great community of people that include the Macaulay Honors students, the Yale students, as well as athletes. And it really gives you a college experience, right? You had a lot of people just staying up at night, studying together. Um, you know, obviously being away from home is such a good experience too, rather than commuting. And I ended up serving as an RA in my senior year, which really I was able to foster supportive network and actually look after the freshmen that were coming into Hunter. So I truly did enjoy my time as a pre-medic at Hunter. I think if I could go back and change something, I would have reached out to Camille a little sooner. I didn't reach out to her until after my sophomore year, and I was taking Orgo. And I was taking Orgo 1 and 2. I was taking Orgo 1 with Orgo Lab. I like special requested to get into the lab early. I was taking like I think Calc 2 and one of their hard class like all at the same time. She's like, Nicholas, why would you do that? Right. Like I walked away with like I think I got like 3 A's and a B- or something, but she's like, you could have just like saved yourself, the stress and done, you split it up. But yeah, definitely reaching out to Camille early. And the biggest thing, if anyone can like get into this podcast and like understand like what made Nicholas successful, right? Like so, I was able to publish a book with building the next generation of academic physicians called Health Professions in Academia: How to Begin Your Career, which really goes over everything that I'm talking to you about right now during this podcast. And it's available on Amazon and wherever you get your books, as well as a free book copy is disseminated every time we have a seminar. Um, what you really should focus on doing while you are a college student is trying to find a mentor, and ideally trying to find a mentor that is in a position that where you want to see yourself in X amount of years. My mentor, Dr. JP Sanchez, who at the time was a assistant professor and dean at University of the New Jersey Medical School, Newark. I connect with them through one of the Bing Up events where one of the Hunter events where they come and showcase their schools in the morning in the it's like the career fair. You know what I'm talking about, like the college fair.
Yeah.
I was the student that said, I want to be admitted to medical school, and I think I need your help to get me there. Can you look at my resume to see if like this is what's competitive enough? And his instructor was like, oh wow, you came to me professionally, and you're asking for feedback. And that's what doctors are good at, honestly, giving feedback. So, there's one day he invited me over his apartment, and he said, all right, well, bring your CV, bring your personal statement, and bring your experiences, which are all part of your application. And in my head, I'm like, I don't know what the heck a CV is. I know what a resume is. I don't even have my personal statement draft, and I don't have any experiences to talk about. So literally, there's 2 days where I was just like sitting on the computer, just drafting stuff up, trying to figure out what to do. And I came there, and he looked at me, and he's like, all right, well, let's work on your interview skills as well. Nicholas, tell me about your greatest weakness. And I completely fumbled over this question. And it took him to be honest with me to say, the CV is honestly not good, right? Like, you need to restructure this, and then we can provide you examples. You need to work on how you interview, because that's what's going to sell you when you get to the program. And when it comes to writing out your experiences, you need to really tell something that captivates a story of who you are and who you want to portray as a future doctor. Um, so yeah, I mean, that was a long-winded answer for saying I had a great time at Hunter, and really focus on finding a mentoring and taking advantage of the opportunities where Camille invites people to the college.
All right. I can definitely say that your mentor helped a lot because you're really good at interviewing. So yeah, I could definitely say that. That's great that you had a wonderful time at Hunter, especially that you were an athlete that commuted from Long Island too. I do actually have a friend who commutes from Long Island and then parks their car in Astoria and then comes to, yeah, I
Stressful.
know, and I can see how the struggle is with that. But you made it. We see you made it. So that's amazing. So you said that you did take a gap year, right?
Yep.
2 gap years, am I correct in saying, right?
Yep. That's correct.
So overall, if you don't mind, can you expand more on what you did during that gap year a little bit more and how it helped you with the med school process?
Sure, sure. So again, I worked at Chem Biodiagnostics. So it's more of a basic science, like lab focused job where, every day we would have a lot of devices, might be like anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 devices, where we were the quality scientists. So before a device is sent out, it needs to be approved by a quality control team to make sure that for one of every 100 devices that is sold on the market, we can confirm that that one worked because it was quality tested. We did different, reproducibility testing with different blood lots and blood types like A, B, and O to make sure that there's no differences in outcomes. Specificity, making sure our negatives are truly negatives and our positives are truly positives, as well as expiry testing to make sure that our devices had a 5-year warranty or 5-year lifespan, that after it, even if people decide to use it after expiry, it would still work for a guaranteed amount of time. And so there wasn't, when I came into the position, there wasn't really much time for creativity, but it really forced me to um, hone into how can I be a leader in this situation. I ended up actually being promoted to supervisor. My last year was like one of the fastest times like they've had anyone promote that fast within the career. And it was really because I challenged them to be like, all right, how do we make this better? Like, we have our current, procedures. We have our, they call it master lot, the master lot documentation, which really walks step by step on, what are definitions of each device and tool that's needed, what are the steps of the procedure, what are the tables that can be filled out, and what is the conclusion, and what are the results, and can this lot pass? And that format of developing a document for testing, for analyzing different results, is truly just the format of how to create a publication. And I didn't really realize that until I got into medical school. And I fell in love with like just creating procedures, right? So like there are a lot of things that need to be standardized in the lab workplace, whether it be keeping certain controls at refrigerated temperatures, or when things should be thrown out in the fridge, or how do we log when we use hazardous chemicals, or formulations, etc. And so, there's a lot of room for opportunity for me to write these things. And they fell in love with me actually taking the initiative to go home, honestly, sometimes unpaid, and just writing them up, because I wanted to leave a legacy. They saw that and ended up being promoted. And, they were such a supportive group, when I shared that, my aspiration to become a doctor. And so they really, put me on any opportunity to work with the UNICEF, which is a nonprofit organization that oversees a lot of our stuff. The FDA would come in, and I would be the first person speaking with them. They would share my interest in medicine. And so I got to work with all these governing bodies when it came to our testing kits, and really allowed me to really develop my professional skills.
Wow, all right. So overall, you just really worked really hard during that gap year, and I can see the results definitely paid off. right? That hard work definitely paid off.
I would say so. I mean, it's a fun environment, man. Like after you graduate, it's like a different world from being an undergrad. Like we had 5 or 6 people all graduate from different colleges with, biochemistry or biology degrees, and we're all you really see the grit part of Hunter that comes out, having to be a Hunter student. And that really shows in, the workplace with people willing to, work a little extra, a little harder to get things done. I think Hunter students overall are better team players. And Hunter students overall know how to grind. And I
Mm,
think that's something that, you learn, once you're out of it.
right. I can see that definitely. And also you didn't just work with pre-med students, I assume, right? You worked with people from all certain types of fields. Did that contribute to anything in terms of your journey, or did that, help you at all, like seeing different perspectives?
I'd say so. I think I started to truly appreciate those that were, and this actually probably going to surprise you, but those that were majors in other social sciences like anthropology oh my God, I can't word psychology. Geez, sorry. Um, there's such a big part of medicine now, and this I'm going to take this away from the gap here, but kind of apply it to my clinical years in medical school just really quick. You know, learning how to obtain information and have interpersonal people skills is almost more important than actually knowing the knowledge, because it is so important to be able to gather information, and if you can't do that, then you can't solve the problem. And so oftentimes you see and you hear notoriously, there's people that are extremely book smart that score in the 99th percentile of the MCAT and other standardized tests when it comes to medical school. There's a disconnect that happens when they go from the books to the floors. And, you'd almost see that too within the lab when it came to people, having to work with each other, and like their social skills are off, and, they lacked emotional intelligence. So I think I really gained appreciation for those that, were majors in the social sciences. They really taught me how to approach scenarios, on a different lens.
Wow. Okay. So overall, being able to see like other social sciences really helped you, see a different perspective, and you believe that helped you during your med school journey. Just to reiterate, right? During
Absolutely.
medical school specifically, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
So it's not all about the books, it's also about being able to be in that clinical setting, right? I think
Yep.
and I can definitely agree. I think sometimes I forget that, right? Medical school is not just also reading textbooks and sitting down in a classroom taking exams. You're also going to be out of the classroom in a clinical setting, actually doing the applying those actual skills. So that's really
Exactly.
good to take away. Thank you so
Yep.
much. So speaking of medical school, I know you went to the Albany Medical School, correct? If I'm
Albany Medical College, correct. Yep.
Right. Albany Medical College. So how was your experience there? How was your medical school experience overall? Yeah.
Good. I mean, I forgot to share a key detail. But I just want to take you before why I chose Albany Med.
Mm,
Actually, I was very fortunate to get multiple medical school acceptances. And I didn't want to go to my Albany Med interview. Actually, I was only going to come here because my cousin was here, and I wanted to take a trip to come visit him.
mm,
Um, and I remember I was invited to NJMS, New Jersey Medical School. They had like a SNMA, or Student National Medical Association, gathering for all the accepted students. And I was going there, and they were telling me, it's like, oh, what things should I look for in choosing a medical school? And they said, the first thing is money, right? Whether you like it or not, the first thing is money, right? Not a lot of people understand that your quality of life in medical school is very determined on your financial status, unfortunately. The second thing is, do they want you? And are there graduates going where you want to go?
mm,
Third thing is location. And I want to note, and I want everyone to anyone who's listening to this, notice I didn't say prestigious school.
mm,
Notice I didn't say the name of the school. It's money, location, and where are their graduates going? So if you look at the rank list, or sorry, not the rank list, you look at the match list of the school that you're looking at, and you see they're matching people into Mayo Clinic, they're matching people into Harvard, matching people to Mayo. Let's say you want to go back home and say, oh, I live in New Jersey. I want to see if they match something in Robert Wood. All you have to do is look at the program match list and see if they're matching people there, right? So I went that very same night. I actually was driving home to Long Island. I was reflecting, to myself, well, like, what do I do about this, right? Like, I was accepted to Albany Med, I was accepted to Albert Einstein and a few other schools as well as NJMS. And Albert Einstein was always my dream school, and they weren't really offering me any financial aid package. And you know, a week before, Albany Med had called me and told me, he's like, "Oh, Nick, you did an amazing job at your interview. What can we do to get you here?" Which had never happened to me before. And I was like, "Wow, you guys must really want me, huh?" Um, and Dr. Lard here, one of our deans, had asked me, he's like, what is it going to take for you to get here? And I said, honestly, the biggest thing is my financial situation. And, when choosing a medical school, I'm really looking at the finances. And she said, okay, I'll get back to you in 2 weeks. That night, I actually witnessed a car crash. Someone had crashed right in front of me, and he was trapped on the steering wheel. And I was staying with him for about like 3 to 4 hours, just like not knowing what to do. Right. He wasn't injured that I could visibly see, but he was just, alone and just trapped. And so I ended up calling paramedics again. I'm freed. I had to work literally 2 hours later. So I went home, I slept. And that very same day, I ended up getting a call back from Dr. Lar, and she's like, "Nicholas, I just want you to know that our committee is extremely impressed by your accomplishments, and we think you'd be an amazing fit." He's like, "We're going to offer you a full ride to Albany Med, as well as a 30K stipend per year to attend here. And just the only thing you have to do to keep the money is just be enrolled in our school." And, I remember I dropped down and cried. I was just thinking that like there's a school that really is like pushing for me to go there. I cannot deny this. And so that was the main reason I went there. I was very fortunate to get accepted at other, medical schools, but no one was really speaking this loud. And I knew that I could be successful at Albany. And I was more than, I think, if I look back at my career or look back at, that moment, if I knew what I was able to accomplish, I would have been even more excited to come here. And so medical school, really just like talking about like the talking shop for like, a little bit, trying to get out of the story. It was hard. I kind of want to talk about the social and demographic implications behind, things that made me uncomfortable. I was one of 4 Black men that started here at Albany Med. We do have Black women, had a small Hispanic population. I'm the last Black man that's actually applying this year, or that matched this year. I remember my first year in medical school, we had a group of us that were like, maybe we should start the Black Men White Coats initiative. And our last test of first year, I just remember losing 2 of us. And I was like, damn, when am I next? Like, when's it going to be me? I was always that guy that always was the middle of the pack. When it came to med school, sometimes I'd be like, maybe top 30% if I'm, or top 30, yeah, top 30% if I was like really good at, or if you're really feeling it. Sometimes I'd be below the middle, but it was tough. It's a lot of information at once. What really was my saving grace is, learning how to surround yourself with good people. And, I was always that person at Hunter that was like, all right, dudes, I can't go out tonight. I have to study. Learning how to say no was a big thing for me. Right. Like when I got here, it's like, I want to take up every leadership position, be involved in every organization. I served as vice president of my class when I first got here. I was the national coordinator of Bing Gap, building the next generation of academic physicians, which entails about 20 hours a week of work for this nonprofit. And up in my 3rd year of medical school, serving as a center director for Bing Gap for their national center, as well as serving as the Bing Gap chapter president here. And it was a lot. So I would say, heading into medical school, you really need to learn like how to prioritize like what's important to you, whether that be your family, whether that be your friendships or relationships, and kind of see what your day is going to look like. Some people can go through medical school and treat it like a job. So I'm going to study from 9 to 5, and then the rest of the day is like for me and like my personal time. Some people say, I'm going to study 2 hours a day, and every hour I'm going to, or not 2 hours, I'm going to study 2 hours on and then 2 hours off, 2 hours on, 2 hours off. But for the most part, a lot of the material that you take are actually online, so you can kind of learn at your own pace. So I mean, it was a very interesting journey. Definitely learned a lot about myself in the process. Definitely grew as a human and grew in my character. And I'm thankful that I'm here at Albany Med and not at another college.
Wow. All right. Well, first off, before I even go into it, I just want to say I hope a medical school wants me like that. We're gonna pray about that. We're gonna pray for
Heck,
that.
man. Yeah, man.
But I also feel you. I'm also Black, and I barely see any other Black students in my pre-med classes specifically. well, specifically Black male students in my pre-med classes. So I definitely understand. I feel like it's definitely something that I'm going to see as I move forward throughout my medical career and throughout my medical journey. Other people, other minorities who are also on this med school medical journey will also see that as well. But it's really good to know that you were able to overcome a lot of these challenges during medical school, which was actually going to be my next question was, did you face any challenges during medical school and how did you overcome them? But overall, you did really show that and speak about that. It's really, really inspirational for me to see that, someone as, successful as still, was like, how do I say this? Like, was still had just a little bit of trouble during med school. Med school, is still going to be hard no matter if you are the top student in your class during undergrad, right? It's still a
Absolutely.
really
Yeah.
difficult, process, but you were able to overcome it, right? And I think that's really inspirational to see someone that was able to overcome those obstacles and those difficulties during med school, and now you're going to Yale.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
So, as you're saying, medical school is tough. The journey overall is tough. So I guess my next question was for you is, have you found time to do things that you love? You know,
Yeah. I think the best part about med school is meeting interesting friends. I think, one thing you should try to do, after you graduate or before you graduate is find something that's defining for you. For me, obviously, is my wrestling background, my mixed martial arts background. So I ended up doing jujitsu. And so people know me as like jujitsu Nick or Nick, the guy that does like fighting stuff. But like if you look around all of med school, I think you really attract very amazing people, right? Well, on my interview trial, I met people that were ex-Olympians, people that were retired NFL players, um, just other people with amazing backgrounds, people interested in cooking, people that uh, people's families who's like, long legacy of doctors that, their textbooks are named after this person. So you really get to meet uh, interesting people. I It's hard to find time to be quite honest with you. I don't think finding time is their correct verbiage. I think you really have to make time. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying before about planning out your day and, saying that no matter what happens on Tuesdays at 7 o'clock, I'm going to go to jujitsu, right? It doesn't matter if there's a test the next day. It doesn't matter. I need to study those extra 2 hours because the truth is that those extra 2 hours that you take studying are not as valuable as you taking those 2 extra hours for self-care. So, it goes even to undergrad. If you know that there's a test coming up and you know that you have a long week ahead of you, make sure you schedule those times off, right? One of the biggest things I can also recommend is, you get a lot more focus on getting more quality studying rather than quantity for studying. And so that means like take your phone, turn it off. Take your phone, leave it in your car, leave it on the first floor or leave it somewhere where it's very not accessible. And then study for as long as you can, take a walk, study again, but try your best to really disconnect and focus on, the task in front of you. And you'll walk away from that day saying, I feel like I learned a lot more. And I think that's like one of the problems with technology. Like there's like almost like information overload where like you have all this information at your fingertips. However, like you have too much where, people's social lives start interacting with you trying to learn the Krebs cycle. Um, so try your best to, separate that and really focusing on time management. Um, yeah, I'd say that's pretty much how I found me doing jujitsu.
wow, okay. So that's really important time management overall, I can see. Definitely doing self-care, and also quality over quantity. Definitely, I can preach that. I definitely I'm going to need to lock up my phone whenever I study. That's
Yeah.
definitely a really big issue for me. But I definitely agree. I've noticed also too, I do better on tests when, I spend like, a certain amount of time just studying on that rather than studying over a period of time, but you're being distracted, right? So definitely getting rid of those distractions and also being able to care for yourself, right? A lot of people, when they think of pre-med, they think of, just all the time study, 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 study. You have no time for yourself. But I think it's really good that you're saying that we should find some sort of time for ourselves, something that we enjoy doing. So thank you for that piece of advice.
Yeah.
So you went through pre-med, you went through medical school. Now you're a fourth year medical student who was recently matched to Yale University for urologic surgery. So I want to ask, how was your journey applying to residency? Would you say it was harder than applying to medical school? Were there any major differences, major similarities? Would you still give the same tips? Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I was sitting down actually at my mentor's house, and he was mentoring someone that was applying for residency and was applying to medical school. And I was thinking to myself, like, wow, that will never be me. I don't know if I'll make it that far. That's insane. She's writing so much, and she's so smart. She's basically a doctor.
Mhm.
Um, I was just amazed, you know, about how I felt so insignificant applying into medical school, and just the gap in knowledge that was like right before me, because she was at a different point of her life. And now sitting in the seat, post match, post applications, away audition rotations, it's just very surreal in the process. And I'm sure I'm going to feel the same way when it comes to I see people applying to fellowship, right? There's a foundation of learning how to, advocate for yourself, and learning how to prepare yourself on a piece of paper that makes you attractive, that, transcends all checkpoints in your life. And I talk about this in the book that, I'll re-mention at the end of the podcast. But, learning how to develop the skills of writing a CV, learning what scholarship is, um, the importance of mentorship, and the importance of documenting your skills is really the same at every level. So just to quickly briefly talk about the ERAS application, or the electronic residency application service. And so it's very similar to I forgot the name, but the AAMC's way of applying to medical school. I think it's AMCAS or something. Um, they're they actually have the same thing in terms of experiences, most valuable experiences. You're limited to 10. They have a section for publications. So it's pretty much the same like application format when it comes to your initial application. We have things called signals, where you signal a program. This is different for every residency, but you signal specific programs or hospitals you're interested in working at. And then from your signal list, your letters of recommendation, as well as your application, they select their applicants that they want to select. Obviously, there's a big filter process in medical school, knowing whether or not you want to go into a surgical subspecialty versus a medicine subspecialty. And don't listen to what everyone says, like, oh, like, if you're going to go into, you have to be in, people at the top, 1% of the class always go into plastics, always go into, or, ENT, otolaryngology. When you get into medical school, you truly choose a specialty that, you can't see yourself doing. You can't see yourself doing any other specialty. You find that one for you, and it's really based on personality. It's based on fit. It's based on like how you see yourself in the future. Um, and so really, I really thought the application process was the same. It's actually a little better, because it felt like I was going through applying to medical school again. And it's, just you remembering that the same skills you use to apply to medical school, the same skills you apply to residency. So I didn't think it was necessarily harder. I think having the background that I did and coming from Hunter actually made me more prepared than most people. There are a lot of people that end up going to medical school that are bridge programs that have guaranteed acceptance. And so having the skills of applying to medical school really stood out in my application. Actually served as a mentor for some of my friends when they were filling out their journey cards. So uh, very good experience for me.
Right, so that's good to hear that it was kind of similar to applying to med school. So overall, it was kind of like a part two, you would say.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay, that's good. And then that's really good for students like us, right? Who are applying to med school, feel like, oh my God, that was horrible. I just applied to med school, but I guess it kind of feels like you can just do it again, kind of like fix the mistakes almost that you feel like you did during the med school application process, and kind of fix those during the residency application process. I guess, is that kind of another way you can kind of view it as?
Yeah, so it's really just your story that's being built upon. So everything I applied to medical school with, for the most part, actually was in my ERAS application. Obviously, the smaller experiences that I had done at college, I didn't really put. So I put everything during my gap year. I actually put that as an RA at Hunter. I put some of the projects I worked on at Hunter, but it was mostly the things that were substantial that I thought would be interesting to talk about when it came to my residency application. So yeah, there obviously is a lot more that happens in medical school that you need to add to your CV. That is probably the more important substance of your ERAS application. But for the most part, you're really just building upon the experiences that you already made when you applied.
All right. So I'm glad that it was really successful for you. And now you got matched at Yale University. I know I keep emphasizing that, but Yale University. So please give yourself the praise that you deserve.
Appreciate it.
So I guess my question is, are you excited for residency? Specifically, I know you're doing urologic surgery residency. Do you maybe want to emphasize or expand on that more? Why specifically urologic surgery? And yeah, are you excited for residency overall?
Of course. I mean, I think the best part right now is fourth year med school, and I have just months off to really
Mm.
take care of myself and do self-care. But I found urology really serendipitously. I was at actually it's a funny story. So I was at a jujitsu class, and when you think of people that do jujitsu, think of like strong guys, like people like scrapping and fighting with each other, MMA guys. You think of like people like Conor McGregor and stuff. And one of my partners that was he went up me when he went up to me at the end of class and he was like, Nick, you're practically a doctor, right? And I said, this is like me first year medical school. I'm like, I don't know anything about medicine. And he goes, my doctor diagnosed me with prostate cancer. He's like, what do you think about that? As a first year medical student, I'm thinking about, all the things I know. And like, I don't remember what the hell a prostate was. I'm like, what's a prostate? Um, and after that, I'm like, you should trust your doctor. This is something that you should continue to check in with. But I ended up going home, just researching everything to know about prostates and like different types of surgery that go on in urology, like laser lithotripsy, like blasting renal stones, really just appreciating the sensitive care issues that urology has to face. And so, there's a level of like communication that sometimes isn't really taught, but it's like just who you are as a person that you're able to communicate with these like uncomfortable issues that urology has to deal with that a lot of people didn't. And I really enjoyed these conversations because I felt like I was that person in school that people talking about anything, right? Like literally anything, and I'll keep it at that. And so I really just love being in a surgical specialty. Like I have that, athlete mindset in me that like, oh, I did this bad. I'm gonna do it better next time. Oh, I'm gonna go home and practice suturing 1,000 times. So next time I'm on the OR, the skin is gonna look perfect. And it showed. I did away rotations where during your fourth year medical school you're able to do audition rotations where you visit another hospital and they basically view you as a sub intern, or an intern rather, and then you're uh, acting like one of the team and see like how do you fit in the program. And so I did one at Montefiore in the Bronx. I did the next one at Yale University. And I let my actions really speak for itself. I show them that, I'm a hardworking person that knows their stuff. And that, I'm extremely interested in academics. And, I had publications in, healthcare disparities. I was really interested in, public health aspects of medicine. Other publications using like the graduated student medical questionnaire, like looking at what medical students specialties and what they intend to go into and like how that relates to experiences they have in medical school. Um, and I just really enjoy that urology is one of those fields that's forever innovative and forever changing and is extremely focused on academics. And so, yeah, I mean, long story short, I'm extremely excited to start this residency. It's a great specialty. I'm always here to talk to anyone that's interested in the specialty. And I'm also part of a national organization called R. Frank Jones Urologic Society. And this is a society that helps those that are interested in urology from an early point in their career, get started and get connected with networks across the field.
Wow, okay. So overall, you're excited for like the academic part of it. You really do like, yeah, the academic part, sorry, for stumbling. Let me repeat that, sorry.
No worries.
Right. So overall, you like the academic part of it, of urology, right?
Correct.
As a specialty. And then also you like surgery and you believe that your athletic background kind of like, builds into that thing. Oh, I messed up, but I'm going to go home, practice 1,000 times to make sure I get it right the next day. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's definitely, sorry. Yeah.
No, yeah, and just like wanting to be like, wanting to be a champion at something, wanting to do well.
Right. I can definitely see how that specialty would definitely be perfect for you. I could definitely see that. So overall, I guess you can say when choosing the right specialty for someone, or for let's say if I were, applying for residency, you would suggest that I would choose something that kind of matches with my personality and like my backgrounds overall.
Exactly. That's spot on.
All right, great. So overall, that's all the questions I have. However, I do want to hear more about your book, specifically if you'd like to elaborate more on it.
Sure, sure. So this was a collaboration between myself and Dr. JP Sanchez, who's now a dean at they used to say it's a Puerto Rican medical school, LCME accredited. Um, and it's called Health Professions in Academia: How to Begin Your Career. And this was a collaboration of 20 different providers across the country going into any graduate field. So we have authors that are in dentistry, authors that are in social work, pharmacy, as well as medicine, and among other career fields that got together and designed 9 different chapters that are essential, just like facets of what you need to be successful when applying into medical school or graduate school, rather. And learning how to build that foundation that's going to carry you through each process. So, from applying to that, applying into residency, and from applying into residency, eventually applying into your first faculty position. And so, one of the biggest things that my application actually showed, even when applying to medical school, is that I wanted to be a faculty member. And that really took people off guard. They're like, what do you know about being a faculty member? And the fact that I knew at such an early age, and at such an early point in my career, opened up eyes. And so, there's one thing that I'll try to sell it, as best as I can right now, so you can kind of understand like what my purpose was for doing this, is that, you know, the things that you learn in medical school are all based on what people have published in the past. One of the things that really frustrates people in medicine is when their story is not being told. And so the beauty about becoming a faculty member, the beauty about contributing to the literature, is that you can take your own lived experiences, whether you be an African American with Haitian patients that came, or Haitian ancestry that came here and suffered under a dictator rule, and you have different health implications. We're living in Brooklyn, or you are from a Hispanic background and have to deal with English as a second language, and having to navigate the healthcare system like that. You can use your history and use your personal experience to publish. And what's published in literature ends up being taught in the medical school. So effectively, you make change on a national scale by publishing your lived experiences. And that's really the beauty of working for Bing Gap, or again, building the next generation of academic physicians. And so this book was, one of our first steps to writing out actionable steps for people to take when considering this career. And so we have a chapter on, how to use the different offices within your college, like going into the student affairs and your financial aid office, and what does that look like on the different levels from, undergrad to medical school to when you're eventually in residency. How to be involved in scholarship, how to turn educational experiences into publishable items, how to communicate your community service in a way that is something that you can put down on paper, how to be competitive for interviews, how to share your story in writing a CV. And so, this was a accumulation of all of our lived experiences. And the best part about the book is that each author shares their own personal experience working with each of the chapters. And so you get to see like, people being vulnerable about their experiences and, facing challenges, and why these particular facets were important to them. And so I highly recommend people read it. If you're interested, you can go on Amazon, you can type in Nicholas Brutus book, it should pop up. But again, it's Health Professions in Academia: How to Begin Your Career. It's also on Springer or wherever you can find books.
All right. First off, congratulations on getting your book on Amazon. That should be a big accomplishment for you. Personally, I'm definitely going to buy it now because
Yeah.
I've always been wondering like what is that full experience like? Someone that's a pre-med student, you really only get a chance to see like that undergrad kind of feel. You never really get a chance to see how it is overall, especially for other fields, right? To see that, yeah, medicine is hard, but how are other fields, how do other fields, feel, in terms
Yeah,
of your
exactly.
well. And I'm really happy that your book is able to display that and present that. So thank you for creating your book. I know that sounds like kind of weird, but thank you for making a book like that. So yeah,
Of course.
overall, that's all the questions I have. It was a wonder having you today, being able to interview you. Specifically, it's amazing to see, overall, as I, progress more into the pre-med journey, I start to see less of my peers, right? And it makes me feel like, oh, it's no one really ever goes into med school, but it's really cool to see that someone from Hunter, someone that was in our shoes, was able to be as successful as you. So thank you for sharing your journey. Thank you for sharing all the tips and advice for students like me, for pre-med students here at Hunter College. Overall, again, it was a pleasure speaking to you today. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And I hope you have a wonderful start to your residency at Yale.
Oh, I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Of course, no problem. Have a wonderful day.